Hey, welcome to the Uncommon Life podcast, the show where Lewis, Rich and myself delve into topics that are helping us build towards being in the best shape and health of our lives. It's fair to say that we're quite far into that journey. That said, we're changing our minds on various topics as we learn more about ourselves. And there's also some things that we each find uniquely challenging. Our hope is that you can relate to some of our journeys and challenges, and that you find it inspiring and useful as you build towards being in the best shape and health of your life. Today's episode is on supplements. What's our view on supplements? How has our view changed over time? And which ones do we currently take and why? It's as simple as that. So let's jump in.
I'm interested to get your view on this, Lewis. I'd love to know what because I know I'm a little bit on the scale of like all manufactured things are evil, stay away from it kind of thing. So I'm intrigued to know where you're at on it.
And you know what's interesting is that supplements never come up in our conversations. Really, they rarely do, right? It's all training, it's all nutrition. It's quite interesting, actually. So, as it stands, I have no idea where Lewis stands on it or what he takes. Whether it's like he could be taking, he could be like literally buddies with your man Zero. Like, don't die. I'm hanging out with Brian
He's
Johnson. I'm doing 100 pills a day, like my man. Or he could be like doing nothing. You just don't know, do you?
He's on a morning TRT routine, whacking some training into the veins.
Exactly. Or he's like, I just don't do supplements. I just do steroids. That's pretty much it. Like, they're just better.
They're just more efficient. I just find that out-and-out steroids are more efficient than supplements. And
yeah, this is a good intro, but let's try and do a proper one. So today we're going to talk about supplements, as we were just talking about there.
Every time. It's amazing. This should be our intro. No, Daniel's smiley face just every fucking time.
What, you lost me again?
Yeah, no. You're already blurry. Yeah. We lost you in the last 10 seconds.
I waited until. By the way, if that ever happens, don't write too much about it because it's recording locally, so it's going to figure itself out in the actual real version.
Okay, right.
But anyway, we're going to have a bit of a conversation about supplements. I think actually we've probably all got perhaps some slightly different views, and I know, like personally, my view has changed quite a lot in the last 6 months. So yeah, it'd be just interesting to kind of see where everybody's take is at with supplements and if they're taking them, what they're taking. And I thought I'd also prepare myself and have a little drink.
Athletic Greens.
Podcast is my Athletic Greens, so I felt that it was pretty fitting to like start the call off with a nice dose of Athletic Greens. There we go.
And if you want to get the discount code on Athletic Greens, as every other health and fitness podcast in the world is doing, go to...
They're pretty deep in sponsorship of the podcast world. Yeah, they'll probably hear about this podcast and want to sponsor us, I would imagine.
They are all over the health and fitness podcast, aren't they? Everything is Athletic Greens.
Everywhere. Yeah, everywhere.
Are they good?
Not sure
Do you like them?
I'm not sure after listening to us talk about it for the next half an hour, they'll want to sponsor us. I'm not sure that's...
Lewis, where do you stand on supplements? Because you're the dark horse. We don't really know. Like,
where do you guys reckon I sit on them?
Well, I want to know what you define as supplements.
Where do you reckon I am on them?
I reckon you don't take a thing.
I reckon you do a multivitamin in the morning. I reckon something like that. I reckon you keep it real simple, probably a multivitamin, and that's about it. That's what I might guess.
Yeah, I don't take any supplements. And it's not that I don't believe in, I lie. I don't, what do I do?
Here it comes out now. Here it goes.
I have two consistently. I have two consistently.
Is Dianabol really a supplement? And it's probably not. You could argue the toss, right?
TRT.
So, I take two consistently. So I take a pre-workout with a little bit of creatine before I work out. And that's pretty much it consistently. And I do the pre-workout because I'm normally up at silly o'clock.
What's
so
the pre-workout?
4 or 5.
Yeah.
It's I normally get C4 as the pre-workout. I don't really have a preference. I just look for something that has some caffeine in it, and I normally get what's cheap. And in Costco, you can get like a pack of 2 of C4, and it costs, I think it's like $60. So I work out per serving.
C4 is not really a supplement either. It's just like a bit of a...
It's got caffeine. It's got a couple of arginine. I like it because it doesn't have an obscene amount of caffeine. I don't want the pre-workouts.
How much is in it? Sorry,
I think it's 100 milligrams. I think.
Not
So
much.
it's not between 75 and 100. It's not a huge amount. That and 3 grams of creatine. And that's pretty
Oh,
much
take
my
creatine.
supplement. Yeah, and that's my
Interesting.
supplement routine. Occasionally I'll have a protein shake, but I'm not like religious on them. It's not as though I use them all the time. And the only time I don't really do it to increase my protein intake, which I think we kind of like had a bit of banter on. It was I purely do them just to tie me over. So if I'm in a rush and I just want a quick fix to kind of tie me over for a couple of hours, if I'm about to go out and I'm like just worked out and I'm about to drop the kids off and do whatever, and I'm like, I'm probably not going to eat for a while, I have a protein shake because it just ties me over nicely. And that's pretty much it. I do believe though that I did get a whole bunch of supplements, and I really think there's a lot of value in taking fish oil, but I don't take it consistently enough. And
Okay.
I probably should be a bit more consistent with my fish oil because I just see a huge amount of benefits on that for recovery, bones, mental health. There's just a whole bunch of, I think, scientific reasons just to take fish oil. Other than that, that's pretty much it for me.
How long have you been taking creatine?
How long have I been doing it? Maybe a month. So I haven't
That's a
done
fairly
it.
Oh,
new.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
fairly new. And the only reason why I've started taking it is because I think I heard on a couple of podcasts people talking about just how many mental health benefits there are with taking creatine as well. So it's not that it's just good for muscle recovery and strength, it's that it has like a mental benefit as well. So I forget who it was. It might have been Huberman mentioned it, or
Yep.
maybe on one of
Yeah.
the tier ones. They mentioned
Both
it,
of
and I was
them.
like, oh, I should probably get it. And it was on discount at Costco again. So I was like, oh, there's a big tub at Costco. I'll grab that.
Are you
So,
just taking like monohydrate, just like the powder?
yeah, just the powder mixed in with my pre-workout. But I didn't do the loading. I didn't bother doing like 5 days
No.
of loading or anything like that. It was just a 3 pretty much every day. And if I'm not working out, I won't take it because I only just
Yeah.
mix it in with my pre-workout. And that's my regime. I feel as though I probably could add a couple of things in there, but I just forget. I have my little supplement box, and if I'm being really good, I'll fill it up at the weekend, and then maybe I'll have like some vitamin C or some. But I rarely ever like consistently do it. So
Have you felt like a difference from now being on creatine for a month? Has it made a difference to you?
not
Not-
really.
obviously not
Not
most
that
of
I've
it, no.
noticed. No, I don't think. Because I'm always like ridiculously strong and really mentally clear anyway. So I'm joking. No, I really haven't noticed any difference. Maybe if I think I'd probably, if I were doing really heavy lifts training where I was working on my maxes, maybe I'll see a bit of a difference.
Yeah.
But I don't know with my type of training where it's more, I guess, strength endurance stuff. And I generally recover pretty well anyway because I'm just so used to training pretty often. But that's me. I'm really keen to hear about you guys and what you do because I know, Daniel, you go deep on these things.
No, not really. I mean, like, creatine
Yeah.
is definitely like, actually, if you ask anybody, like, what the sort of most obvious supplements to take are, like, the most proven, creatine just rises to the top of the list, right? You know, it's it seems to kind of have the most kind of scientific kind of evidence around it, the most proven. It's got the most amount of studies around it, and you can all see from the benefits there, like, you know, everything from performance through to some of the cognitive stuff and hydration and stuff like that. So, and also it's super cheap, like, you know, assuming you're not going with those kind of like crazy, get it mixed up with carbs and stuff and pay like, you know, $50-$60 for a huge jug of kind of creatine, which has just got like a load of sugar and it's just marketed. Actually, if you just go for straight creatine monohydrate, at least in the UK, you're picking up like a 500 gram bag for like 20 quid or 25 pounds, and that lasts a long time if you're taking 3 to 5 grams a day, right? No loading, no messing around like when you have to take it, just take 3 to 5 grams a day. So like you, I can't say, oh, I started taking creatine and now I'm like 15% stronger. But it seems like, and it seems like that's the case with a lot of supplements, right? They're quite subtle, so you don't necessarily start taking something. There are some things, right? And we'll talk about that in a minute. I think there is one thing I've taken that has made a difference, but at least with creatine, I probably haven't noticed like an actual material, I can point to a difference. But I've been taking creatine for about 5 to 6 months, 5 grams a day, just religiously, just because I think the evidence is just too obvious to ignore. Rich, I know, like, I don't know if you take it or not. You have problems with like digesting it, maybe. Some people do. Some people get cramps and they have digestion problems with it.
I mean, I kind of, for me, and we would all be a bit different here, I generally struggle with the concept of putting anything manufactured into my body. So I generally I'm not a proponent of any of it. And so the only time when I see it like almost like layers, right? I wanted my health, my exercise to be really good, then my nutrition, then my sleep, then my hydration. And eventually, if I'm optimized everything else is perfect, then I might look at supplementation. I might look at some supplements. And so, but the problem is, I don't really. They're just not appealing to me. And then when everything else is absolutely perfect, I'm like, right, you know what? I'm going to try and now introduce, let's say, in summer, because I cut my calories right down, I tried to introduce protein shakes because I was looking for a way of keeping the calories low but having a high enough protein intake, and I struggled. So I started taking protein shakes, but my stomach just couldn't tolerate them. Like I tried all sorts of manufacturers. The only one I could tolerate was kind of clear whey protein, which is like a lighter form protein. But you only get like 20 grams in servings of 500 ml of water so I could actually digest it. So I just didn't do well with that. And it's, again, same with creatine. I just can't digest it. It just makes me feel uncomfortable, like bloated and just horrible. So, it's one of these things that I've tried all sorts. And I don't think I'm the only one. I think that's a fairly common thing. So I'm a bit biased around that anyway, naturally, because when I take it, I just don't feel good. And then I'm like, well, I don't have that with any other food. I can eat anything. I don't have any stomach issues with any other food substance I've ever discovered. Yet if I take processed like either whey, like whey protein shakes or any blend, I tried kind of, the soys, I tried the plant-based, I tried all sorts. None of it worked. And creatine's the same. So I just dropped it. I was like, it's not worth the hassle. I tried for like a couple of months because I thought it might be useful to make my life a little bit easier to hit some of my targets. But no, I dropped it.
How about this? And say if you were able to take creatine and it didn't make you feel uncomfortable, given your general attitude around supplements, which, by the way, we should talk about in a second, because that's a very good attitude to have around supplements, right? Like really thinking about making sure that training and nutrition and sleep and these other things are in play, and then really supplements should be added on as an icing to the cake to those things. There's a lot of people that like take a large amount of supplements and sleep horribly and have a horrible training program and aren't consistent and eat rubbish, and it's like it's kind of it's really like the 5% probably on top of everything else. But anyway, all of that aside, like, would you take creatine if it didn't cause you discomfort?
Do you know, it's a real struggle because I'm a massive fan of the Hoogmans and the Attias, and we all listen to similar stuff, right? And I'm a massive fan of the Mind Pump podcast, and it's something they go on about as well. So there's a lot of modern day science to say this thing is amazing, it's really good. But the reality is, if you went back 20 years, everyone said that about multivitamins. And they said that for 20, 30 years. I had all the science and all the reports. You go read it. It's the same. Yet we now know that those multivitamins actually have carcinogenics built into them that were for 30, 40 years told they're the best things in the world, to now find out actually they've been massively inflammatory of cancer causes. And so I just find it hard to swallow or believe that we should be ingesting things manufactured in labs into our body. As far as I'm concerned now, creatine is slightly different. I appreciate that because it's already naturally occurring. And I know there's also a shift now with peptides. So I've been looking at collagen peptide right now for joint health. So I'm trying to understand it. But I can't get very far away from the fact that science is very it's very time window based. And it is definitely the truth in the window you're looking at. But I'm not convinced in 30, 40 years that will still be the truth. And so therefore I default away from supplements as a whole, and I would only consider taking them really if everything else was completely perfect and I felt that was then necessary to get to the next step. So for example, Danny, I've discussed this, and it's not supplement, it's in the same theme, like TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. It's massive right now. Everyone's doing it. It's in every podcast, it's on Rogan, it's whatever else. You get to a certain age and your testosterone dips and you should now take testosterone replacement therapy. And I don't understand it well enough yet. But it's the same kind of principle, which is this thing could be amazing. It could make the rest of my life much, much better. But do we have enough data to really understand the real impact of what that could be in over that kind of 20, 30-year window? And so that's right. I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I definitely feel that I'm I pull away from manufactured products where I can do.
So to answer the question, no. You would take it.
Yeah, is that a no or a yes? Probably a no.
You would take creatine. No, I've got a couple of things I want to ask you on that. I think just trying to piece it together. I did not know about multivitamins. Is that like commonly known that they have like carcinogenics in them? Really?
Yeah, for it only changed like 8 or 9 years ago. I'll send you the articles. It's kind of there was I forgot the name. There was a particular chemical used in almost every multivitamin. And then they trace back like, fuck, okay, we put this, everyone's using it, and it turns out that one chemical now is like directly relatable to cancer causes. I'll send you the articles. It's one of those big one of those big pharmaceutical things. And don't forget, the people making these supplements are making a fortune, and they're not like supplements are not a medical grade. What's with the
tested? They're not like medical grade tested. Exactly.
It's considered a food because it's a food. And American foods just have no testing. I mean, Jesus, the shit that goes in American processed foods is unbelievably just loose. You've got no idea what's going in those supplements, and then the control bar is so low.
Because in my mind, I still think there's benefits in a multivitamin. That's so bizarre. Even though, like, if you eat, like, I don't.
Well, yeah,
I agree with you. I think, but it's like, would you take a multivitamin?
I think what Richard's saying is like, that's not multivitamin specific, right? Anything that is kind of like created and produced as a pill or whatever, it's like, you often find out later on. Again, even just if you go back to the COVID injections, etc. Like what we now know 2 or 3 years later is slightly different from what everybody was telling you 2 or 3 years ago. So it sounds like for Rich, when you think about the risk and the reward, you weight pretty heavy around the risk. So you're probably unlikely to do much or of anything, even if it didn't make you feel uncomfortable, because you're just you're more attuned to the risk. But like, for example, with creatine, for me, I have a slightly different kind of risk reward ratio in my head, whereas I'm like, creatine, like you say, it's naturally occurring in the body anyway. You can't get enough of it. Well, it's not. 5 grams of creatine, for example, is the equivalent to about 2 pounds worth of steaks. You would need to eat 2 pounds worth of steak a day to get 5 grams of creatine. So you're not going to be able to get 5 grams a day, even with your steak eating habits. Like, it's going to take a hell of a lot to eat a kilogram of steak per day. So I think when you look at that, it's just so widely studied. It's been studied for a long time. Everybody seems universally like agreeable that there's a lot of benefits to it. I'm happy to take it because I just think that the reward to risk makes sense in my head. But obviously, everybody has a different view around the risk, right? And you're probably a bit more about, unless it feels really good, you wouldn't take it.
Sure, it's a super interesting topic. Actually, it fits probably more in the psyche of what your goals are as well. Like, I think a lot of people take creatine because they want to get the big muscle pump and grow the muscle size. I think that was the big driver. I think the mental health stuff is almost secondary, and that's more. I don't know. Yeah. I think about 20 years ago when I cared more about that kind of stuff. And I used to, and by the way, like I used to take weight gainers. I don't know if you remember back in kind of like 2000, early 2000s, Maxi Muscle. Do you remember in the UK, Maxi Muscle?
Yeah.
I used to take like Progain. I used to like play rugby, and it was literally 2 Progain shakes a day. I'd be on creatine, you name it, pop the whole lot. So the goal was different. It's only now I'm like, well, that's not the goal for me, and so therefore, why? Like, what's the need? And like, I just don't have a desire. And then, of course, I think, well, all these mental benefits. I'm like, well, I mean, we've survived the last few million years, but without it. And it's like the last kind of last few thousand years, we've actually got worse on kind of like mental degradation, and all these kind of conditions have appeared due to processed foods. I don't sit here thinking, the problem we've got and the reason we now have Alzheimer's everywhere and Parkinson's everywhere is because we're not taking enough creatine in our diet. I don't think that's the case. I think it's introduced by all this other shit going on. So I find it hard to kind of buy into the thesis that you should have to now artificially introduce creatine at a level that has never been theoretically achieved before. I find it hard to get my head around that. So, by the way, I'm not a scientist, and
you're a purist. No, I love it, Rich. I love it. Get it through Whole Foods.
But actually, creatine is actually fairly aligned with your goals, Rich. Like, when you think about it, one of the number one benefits that seem to be touted for creatine is performance and reduced fatigue, so kind of like recovery. And if you're trying to kind of put on muscle mass and get stronger, then arguably creatine is a supplement that will be very aligned to. I mean, that's why I take it, right? I'm like, I want to put on muscle, I want to gain strength, and creatine actually very much aligns towards those goals, which is the reason I take it.
Mm.
I didn't really think
intrigued
about the brain stuff or anything like that, actually.
I'm really intrigued to hear about the supplement that you were going to mention, Daniel, that really has made a difference. I've been waiting eagerly just to ask about that one.
Is that the green one you've been drinking?
Give us a show. Athletics Greens. Yeah, it's gone now though. Look, it's all finished. Yeah, like I used to have a really complicated supplement routine. It had like literally 10 different things in it. It was quite close to your man, Brian Johnson, Lewis. Like it was pretty complicated, right?
He's a legend. Yeah,
and I stepped away, and now I literally just take 3 or 4 things. Creatine is one of them, but Athletics Greens is the other one. So Athletics Greens is kind of like a one-stop multivitamin. Multivitamin and kind of minerals, but it also has like digestive enzymes in it. It has probiotic in it, it has fiber in it, etc. So the way I think about Athletics Greens is, for me, it's just an insurance policy. Sure, like if you're eating perfectly and you're covering every single thing, you wouldn't really need an Athletics Greens. And actually, I do eat pretty good in the grand scheme of things. But there's plenty of days that go by where perhaps I don't have enough fiber or I don't have enough vegetables, and my diet is pretty varied. So I like the idea that just one Athletics Greens per day just gives me kind of like a kind of broad fix. And it's a bit of an insurance policy against gaps in my diet. I don't think it's going to like do anything dramatic. I don't think it's going to help me lift more weights or anything like that. It's just when I think about what I need in my body from a food perspective, it's just going to help cover some of the gaps if I have some days where fiber's low, or whatever's low. But this is like kind of not the greatest topic to kind of talk about, but I've always struggled with like constipation and being able to go to the toilet. Like for like the last 20 years, I would say I've been constipated half of the time. Half the time I just can't go to the toilet, and it's quite common for me to not go to the toilet for a number 2 for like 4 to 5 days. And I get like kind of real bloatedness, and it's like pretty painful and blah, blah, blah. And I've just like, hey, I don't know whether it's IBS or whatever, but I've just accepted it as a way. That's how I am. I feel completely normalized around it. And in the last kind of 6 weeks, I would say I haven't been constipated. And that's completely unheard of for me. And it times with how long I've been taking Athletics Greens as well. And there is something, like, again, I don't know that it's necessarily that that's caused it, because I was trying to think about other changes that I may have made. But I actually haven't really made any other changes. Like my water consumption is the same. My diet is broadly the same, other than I've been eating a bit more. So it could just be like some more carbohydrates and more fruit in my diet is helping the digestion a little bit. But also the probiotics, the digestive enzymes, more fiber in the Athletics Greens itself could be a contributing factor to that. I'd probably only know if I just kept eating what I'm eating and pulled that out of the diet, which would be like a bit of an A/B test to do. But definitely since drinking it, I've noticed that I'm not constipated, and I can't remember the last time I was. And I only thought about that literally yesterday. I'm like, whoa, like that's quite a big thing. But I'm not saying it is down to that either, but it's definitely a coincidence. But yeah, it's expensive. Tastes pretty nice.
Is it expensive? How much is it per serve?
It's you pay a monthly subscription fee for it. I think I pay £79 a month in the UK, so £80. So it's probably a couple of pounds.
So like £2 a day
per serving or something. Yeah, and they just ship you out a new packet every month.
And is it 1 serve a day or 2 serves a day?
Yeah, just 1 serving a day.
1 serve a day, £2.
Yeah.
You've got to think though, if you went and got a smoothie from like Top Juice or something, you'd be paying for a fresh juice like £6, wouldn't it?
That'd have like yogurt and ice cream in it. I mean, that'd be delicious.
Oh no, the fresh juices. You've got like your apple, the carrot, the ginger, those ones. I think they go for about probably about $6. Yeah, maybe £3. So it's interesting because I think on that point though, I don't actually think it's a bad thing not pooing. And I'll just kind of get into it a bit. So if you're feeling constipated, dull and bloated, that's slightly different. But if you're not pooing, I don't think that's a bad thing. And I've got some pretty good examples of when I've done carnivore, for example, my regularity in the toilet would massively reduce. So I would go to the toilet probably once every 4 days. But that's purely because all I was eating was meat and eggs.
Fiber, probably.
And there's no fiber, but it's also your body's also absorbing everything. your body's not kind of saying, I don't need any of this stuff. The time that I actually was super ridiculously regular, when I was vegetarian for like 3 months, and I was just having a whole bunch of lentils and beans, and actually I felt really bloated and uncomfortable then. So I don't actually think depending on what you're eating, if you're feeling constipated and bloated, then that's different.
Yeah, there's a difference between not going for 4 days and actually being constipated, like feeling that you need to go, or being in quite a lot of pain and being very bloated. Like that's how I would.
Okay. Feel. So if you weren't just going and not feeling all right, then, because I mean, on the I was like, I'm not going, but I was like, I feel fine. I don't even feel like I need it. So the body was just kind of like absorbing everything. But I'm glad that it's working out for you. It sounds like it's made a difference, and that's definitely worthwhile.
So Daniel, with this, and just a broader question, because I've heard actually from a few people that they really like Athletics Greens. You're not the first person in my social circle who've kind of actually there, and friends actually who have been saying it's made a big difference to them. What is it do you think that Athletics Greens gives you that your diet's not? Do you think actually it's just that your diet is missing something? Is it the food quality isn't good enough? Is it or are they just more rounded, and you can't even eat that number of like minerals and
I don't know exactly. Like, I'm sure that if you had the perfect diet, or even get close to it, I don't think you'd probably need Athletics Greens. Like, I think on the most part you'd probably get everything that you need. But I just know that sometimes my days skew kind of funny. They just do, right? Like, sometimes I'll fast, and then I'll grab some lunch, and it might be steak and some eggs, and then in the evening I might just end up with a meal, and then I think, shit, I've eaten no vegetables and hardly any fruit today. Now again, ideally I just would, and I'd get the most well balanced, but I just don't know on a day-to-day basis, it just doesn't always pan out like that. So again, I just see it as like an insurance policy. I think it may actually arguably be better for people that just have a bit of a so-so diet, but then you would say you better focus on getting your diet in check, because if it's good, you probably wouldn't need something like that. But again, I just see it as a kind of round the edges. And actually, one of the reasons I wanted to try it was more because of the probiotic, the gut health, and the digestive enzymes, because I was curious to see whether it would actually make a better difference with my digestion and my tummy. And it seems that has happened. But yeah, I agree with you in the grand scheme of things. If you eat really great, then the levels of all of the vitamins, if you think about it, it's got like vitamin C and B and A, like all of these things, you probably do get them pretty nicely from food if you just have a well balanced whole food diet and eat enough.
It's funny, something I've been thinking about, I don't know how you guys, is actually the food quality. So I do have, and I structure my diet like pretty rigidly, but like we discussed, this is because I need like a lot of anti-inflammatory in the food. So I have a very, very broad diet, lots of fruits and veg and whatever else. But the struggle I normally find actually the food quality. So actually stuff that is grown without kind of pesticides and without the shit on it. So actually you do get the nutrients and the goodness from it. A lot of the stuff we pick up in the supermarket is just basically void of any nutrient kind of goodness. So I'm just interested. I don't know. Do you guys even think about that? Is that something like if you go to the supermarket, you just grab, say some spinach, you just grab a bag of spinach, or do you actually care where it comes from or sources? And because that kind of fits with that Athletics Greens piece, right? I mean, it's an interesting.
Yeah, I'm probably not the right person to ask on this, because I'm really going down the rabbit hole of carnivore again, where I'm purely just wanting to eat meat and eggs and like the odd bit of fruit.
Do you care the diet of that animal that you're eating? So, for example, is it grass-fed steak? Do you care like same question really?
I really went deep onto like the rabbit hole of this before, and I was like investigating, like looking at if there's any difference in the like quality of the meat, and like a lot of the like info came out that there wasn't a huge amount of difference, that maybe like the grass-fed was slightly higher in omega-3 than it was in the omega-6s, but it was actually such a marginal difference, it didn't make that much difference. But I don't like to get meat that I feel where the animal's being really treated poorly. So if I can get stuff that's roaming and grass-fed, like chickens, I wouldn't get battery chickens just because I think that's awful, and I've seen like the videos and it looks horrendous, and I'm just like, I really don't want that. So I'd always get free-range chicken, free-range eggs. When it comes to the meat, I think being out in Australia, we're quite lucky here. A lot of the meat is pasture-fed, and there isn't a huge amount of the horrible kind of like meat lots. So I don't do it purely because I think it's going to give me a lot better nutrition. I just don't like the idea of like the crazy farming industry. So it's more of I'm going to eat a lot of meat. I want it to be like have enjoyed some sort of decent life.
I'm the same.
It's not so much on the quality of it though. I'm not sure whether there is that much difference. I don't know.
I think ideally, like I would be really, really thoughtful around that, and I'd only eat grass-fed beef and like organic chicken and free-range eggs. I'm never like I'll always have free-range eggs because they're not that much more expensive, and it's just like again, I just don't like the idea of these like battery kind of like farming type stuff. But with chicken and beef, I do generally just pick up just normal stuff, and I'm like, one day I'll probably get to the point where that's the edge, like free range. But right now, I just want to make sure that I'm actually eating a good diet, and like the base level is just to eat meat.
Well, I would say that on the veg front, if we had better organic veg, I'd probably want to go for the organic veg. On the meat side, more welfare wise, but on the organic side, it's a weird, because it's being sprayed onto it directly, and it like feels like if I'm eating a carrot, I'm going to grate the carrot. I peel the carrot anyway, but it's kind of, if there's organic, I'd go, like for the veg, I tend to want to do it more, but the amount of organic stuff here in Australia, really, it's not as good as it is in England. In England, you go to Waitrose or Sainsbury's and you got amazing organic, like pesticide free or whatever, like product. You don't really have as much here.
It's fascinating. So I think when we talk about supplements, so much of, I think personally, the amount of benefits you get from supplements almost directly relate to your diet. So I think if you have a mediocre diet or a Western diet with high processed foods, I think supplements you would really feel the difference from being on supplements. Like you would just, I think you would feel the benefit.
Point, actually,
And I think the tighter your diet is, so for the less deficiencies you have, for most supplements, the less you feel the benefit. Like you guys both said, you can't really feel the difference of creatine. My question for you is, well, you both have high protein diets because we talk about it a lot. So you're already consuming a lot of natural meat products and animal products and all the other stuff. Can you really feel the difference between that extra couple of grams creatine a day? I'm not sure. But if you didn't have any of that creatine, any of that animal product coming in, and then you start taking creatine, I imagine you would absolutely feel the difference.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
And I think it might be the same. Yeah. I don't, by the way, I don't know. This is just my kind of thesis here. It's just, I wonder if there's like a balancing act.
The ironic thing is that that's still a pretty bad strategy, because you should just focus on cleaning up your diet and not needing those things, right? They're called supplements for a reason, which is why, like, I'll actually share as well. This is what I used to take. I was
going to ask you,
crazy.
About some of the other stuff, because I actually copied some of your stuff.
Let me just load up Blueprint. Right,
like where you were on vitamin D as well, because you used to do that quite often. There was like,
so this is what I used to take. I used to take all of these things, and again, they were just pieced together from listening to lots of smart people, Huberman, like Rhonda Patrick, like Peter Attia. You can literally like David Sinclair, like a lot of these longevity kind of experts. You can start to kind of piece all this stuff together. And by the way, like all of these at that time, I was like, this is just a solid list. These are all seem to be like a common agreement that all of these things are really useful. I don't know how efficient I am in these things.
I look at that and think that is a solid list.
It's costing a lot. I was taking like 10 to 12 pills a day, and actually, like it was from a conversation with Rich where he was like, pretty kind of like sort of anti-supplement. I'm just going to focus on like the diet piece, and I'm like, actually, I want to have that as an approach, and I actually want to strip it right back. So from going something like this, I stripped it back to, I'm going to keep creatine in there because it's super proven, and I just feel like it's cheap. Protein, yes, but weirdly I don't see protein as a supplement, because I don't think about it. I just think about it as I have a certain amount of protein I want to take per day. It's about 200. I find it incredibly hard to get there with food. I could do it, but actually just taking 2 scoops of protein per day takes the edge off it, and it means I need to get 150, 160 from real foods and another 40 to supplement it. It's just easier for me to hit my goal, and I've got into the routine of doing it. So I kept that.
And it tastes nice.
Only other things
let's be honest.
Say again?
And it tastes nice. A chocolate protein shake. It tastes great. I love it.
I don't think so. I don't look forward to
a
protein shake. And I've tried lots of different
delicious.
flavors.
I'm like, it's like a dessert. I'm like, that's yum.
Wow. What make
it's
it
the sweet spot.
Are you sure that's not just like a chocolate milk?
It might
exactly.
be. Yeah, one of those ones.
Nesquik, yeah, you're nailing
Nesquik doesn't
Nesquik.
count as a protein shake.
Try again.
Yeah.
I still take vitamin D, but the only reason I take vitamin D is when you subscribe to Athletic Greens, they give you a year's supply of vitamin D. And it's just a little 2 drops you put in, and I just mix it with my Athletics Greens. So I'm like, I might as well keep taking that, because again, vitamin D seems to rank high on the like stuff that's kind of pretty
Essential
proven to take. And then the only other thing I've kept in, again, because it's pretty cheap and sleep is important to me, is that there seems a lot of smart people say that taking magnesium is helpful for kind of better deep rested sleep. So at the moment, my routine is literally Athletics Greens once per day with the vitamin D, creatine 5 grams a day, and I take 2 tablets of magnesium, so 200 milligrams of magnesium before I go to bed, and that's it. As well as a bit of salt and water in the morning. And again, I wouldn't necessarily say salt and water as a supplement.
Do you not think you're missing out on the fish oil?
Yeah, probably, because I don't eat much fish either. So that would probably be something at some point I'd like to bring back in.
Daniel,
that is a solid list.
Yeah. Before we jump on that fish oil topic, because I want to talk about that one. You have your bloods done fairly regularly. So what are your bloods telling you? Because you've got this big list of supplements you've now adjusted, like, have you been rocking around with like a vitamin D deficiency? Like, what are your bloods telling you?
So, no. But here's the thing. I've always been taking those, and I was taking mostly these type of supplements last time I had my bloods done, and my vitamin D was very, very good. Now, I don't know whether it was very good just naturally or very good because I was taking 5,000 of vitamin D a day. So one of the reasons of stripping this right back actually is that when I get my bloods done at the end of this month, I want to look at it, and yeah, I'm still taking 2,000 of vitamin D, but like when you think about things like zinc and fish oil and vitamin C and these other things, again, they should really sharpen bloods. And I think that's actually the correct approach, is to most of the time is that you should get a set of bloods done and fill the gaps with what you're naturally deficient in, because some people are just naturally deficient because of the way their body works in a certain thing, and therefore supplementing for that gap is super helpful. And it'll either come from you're not consuming the right diet, therefore you have a gap, or some people just, with the way their body works, is they just don't produce a certain amount of that stuff. So that's really the correct strategy, which is part of why I wanted to pare everything down to a core minimum, then get my bloods done, and I will only bring anything back like zinc or vitamin C or even the fish oil, because you get your I forget what the measurements are, but you can tell where your EPA or whatever those measurements are. And again, if they're low, I'll bring in some fish oil, but I'm only going to bring in anything extra if my bloods show that there's a hole. I think that's actually the smartest way of doing it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just end up taking a whole load of stuff for something that you're just naturally fine with. What's the point? Like, it's a waste of money.
Exactly. Yeah, your body will just get rid of it anyway. It only needs what it needs. I mean, so fish oil. So fish oil is an interesting topic, and I'd love to see your guys' thoughts. So I have been looking at fish oil, or krill oil to be more specific, specifically because apparently it's really good for like joint health.
Yeah.
And obviously, as we are all moving that way in our age bracket, our joints are going to start kind of suffering a little bit. Maybe I'm a little bit ahead of you guys with bad joints, just due to the nature of having arthritis. And I don't think I eat enough oily fish. I have fish like 2-3 times a week. And I try to alternate steak fish, but it never really happens because I just prefer steak. So therefore I have more of that than I do fish. But I don't know if you got, like, I'm not on it now. And like I say, I don't really take supplements at all, but it's the one that I'm starting to come around to. Maybe I do need to introduce that. I don't know what you guys think.
I'm a big believer of like the fish oil. And so similar to you, I eat fish twice a week. So I have salmon twice a week. And I also go and get the smoked salmon. So we get like packets of hot smoked salmon, which has like a salmon fillet, and sometimes I'll take that in to work for lunch, and I'll just have all that just as a snack, just to get a bit of extra salmon. The kids also love it, and I just think it's so good for their brain and general health. The thing around joint health though, and inflammation, I think what I would say on that is, I notice when I get inflammation when I'm not eating well. So if I drink too much, or over Christmas, when I generally eat pretty poorly and just drink way too much, I get inflammation in certain parts of my body. So my left ankle always starts to kind of feel a bit because I've rolled it and sprained it like 1,000 times. And my wrist where I broke my bone, I start to get a bit of numbness as well. So for me,
Yep.
it's like with the joint. So I guess the reason why I'm saying that is because when I eat poorly, I feel inflamed. And if I was taking fish oil, it wouldn't make a difference anyway. But when my diet's in check, I don't feel that inflammation. And if I was taking the supplement with the fish, I just think it would be that much better with the joint health and everything. So I think it goes back to your first point of like just the overall eating well and training well makes a massive difference, because I do notice inflammation when I'm, especially with the alcohol. So if I have like 2 or 3 nights, if I'm having like a few drinks, like a glass of wine, I start to feel it a little bit and I'm like, oh, I need to go easy there.
Yeah, I have the same view. I would love to be able to eat more good quality fish, but it's tough, right? Fish is actually very expensive and a pain to find, and then getting good quality fish is almost impossible nowadays. Like, it's nearly all farmed, and therefore it's laced with parasites and all the antibiotics they shove in the water to kill off the parasites. So the quality of fish is just really poor in most situations. So therefore, it's kind of, I'm just wondering, like, whether it's going to become almost like a necessity to offset the fact I'm just not eating enough fish. But,
Why
I'm not
krill?
sure yet. Honestly, the real answer is I have a friend, a guy called Kev, who I showed you his YouTube. He started actually doing a thing on YouTube.
Cool.
He has a very similar condition to me, which is it's a very rare condition actually. But we both have it's a type of rheumatoid arthritis, and he's had the condition for longer than I have, and he's experimented with lots of things, and then he's come back with krill, and basically it's the evolution of fish oil to krill oil, and effectively he's finding it way more effective. And so I don't really know much more, apart from he's a really smart guy that I trust a lot, who's kind of pushing it. So now I need to go understand it and do some research and figure out, does it make sense? But it's just one of those things where, like I said, my philosophy normally is diet, 100% fine. When my diet's on point, completely on point, that it's almost to the T perfect, then I think I can assess the supplements better. Then I think I'll introduce it then. But at the moment, to be honest, my diet slipped this last few weeks, and it would be silly. I wouldn't be able to tell if that's actually having a benefit versus just tightening up the diet again.
And you're right, having like salmon 4 times a week, that does become expensive. So being able to supplement it would give a nice little boost to it, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
What are your thoughts
I love
on
when
that, Daniel?
when you go on holiday and you get like a nice big fish of the barbecue on holiday and stuff. That's amazing.
Yeah. Daniel looks like he's trying to find something.
Yeah, I was just looking to see kind of like what test would give you a sense of of whether you need to supplement with fish oil, because I used to take fish oil. I think fish oil would be the only one thing, unless something with my blood work showed a real hole, would be the one thing I'd want to try and bring back in. It is pretty expensive as a supplement, but the thing is, I don't really like fish, so I don't eat any seafood, and the only fish I really like is cod. And I would say I probably eat fish once every 2 weeks. So when I was just looking, I was looking at my last set of bloods, and it didn't. The test I didn't look at anything related to that. But the test I'm going to do has an omega-6 and omega-3 ratio result to it. So it'll be interesting to see what that is. If that's low, I might bring some kind of fish oil in, and we don't know whether it'd be fish oil or krill oil. I'd have to have a look and research that a little bit.
That's, for me, is where supplements start making sense, right? Because actually it's like, well, it would be good to have that in the diet. You can solve it naturally, but actually there's practical problems with doing it right, supplement against it. It's a bit like vitamin D. Like well, apart from yourself, Lewis, because you live in a very sunshiny place. But I don't. I live in a very non-sunshiny space. So it wouldn't be at all surprised if I have natural vitamin D deficiency, because I'm just not in the sunshine very often. So therefore, that would make sense, right? That'd be like, okay, well, that is supplementing. Although my blood show my vitamin D is fine. So
vitamin D is actually fairly significant. It affects the immune system. You can easily pick up a cold and blah blah blah. So, if you run your bloods and you're not taking any vitamin D as a supplementation, and you show very low, then actually, and vitamin D is really cheap. Super cheap. So actually, I think the AG1 stuff that they ship me, the reason they ship it out with the AG1 is you can buy the little dropper, and it's literally a year's worth. to take 2,000 a day, and you can go online and buy those for like £25 or something, and it gives you like a year's worth of vitamin D. So it's really, really cheap. But again, some people, if Lewis did a test, and because he's living in the sunshine and the way that his body works, his might be right, or his might be off the Richter scale already, at which point supplementing with it's a complete waste of time.
So someone's listening to this and they are living a normal life. So, they're not as loserish as we are and disciplined, let's say. What would your advice be on the supplementation side? What's the takeaway?
Do you want to go?
Answer it if Lewis doesn't want to. I would say what you said at the actually near the beginning of this conversation, Rich, is that I actually think it's too easy to drift into taking lots of supplements and making fairly uninformed decisions about taking stuff, which you have no idea whether you're deficient in or not or whatever. And I think that in the grand scheme of it, rather than thinking about any supplements, I would focus on getting your diet as close to whole food as possible and varied through vegetables, meat, nuts, eggs, dairy, that type of stuff. And I think that if you're eating enough and you're eating mostly whole foods, like that's the place to start. And I think that when you have that in check, only should you then drift into supplements, with the only one exception I would say as a protein powder, just because of how important protein is and actually how practically hard it is for most people to get quite a lot of protein, particularly based on where their diet's at. So I think even before you've got your diet sorted, protein is just a quick and easy fix to be able to kind of get your protein levels up. And then from there, I would just drift towards a select few proven things. Preferably you would do a set of bloods and you would look to see where your gaps are. And you can get blood tests that, like the one I'm going to take is a general health test, but you can get ones that are very much geared around vitamins and minerals and kind of so you can kind of get a sense of what your deficiencies are. They're quick and easy to buy online now when you just do a finger prick test and stuff like that. Actually get a test and look to see where your holes are, and then only bring in the supplements to fix the gaps at the level you need to fix the gaps. So it's focus on diet first of all, get that piece sorted with the exception of protein, and then actually work out where your gaps are and just bring in what you need. But that's actually very, very, very different to how most people think about it. I think most people, let's be honest about it, most people have a bit of a crappy diet and they just listen to what seems cool, get dragged into marketing and end up taking a multivitamin or this or that. And actually the multivitamin just doesn't even touch the edges based on how shit their diet is anyway. It's not even the way to solve it. So that's how I would think about it. That's certainly, I've come around to more thinking about it like that, even with how seriously I kind of eat and train, etc., because it just seems the smarter way to think about it. I don't know how that sounds or whether you'd have a different view to that.
Spot on. I think you summarised that really nicely.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Apart from on the protein side, I don't consider a protein shake necessary. I actually just I think for the average person that just shouldn't be in their cupboard. Their cupboard should just be throwing away processed foods and shit and replacing with good whole food. That's step one. I don't think protein shake is a requirement. But
unless it tastes really good, then get it.
I need to know what brand you're taking.
Yeah, I've never had a good taste.
A supplement company, and we had a protein powder, and it was probably the best one I've ever tasted.
How did we not touch on that until now? We had a whole conversation about supplements, and we missed the fact you owned a supplement company.
Yeah. But we had Nitrium was our protein supplement, and it was a really good tasting supplement.
That's pretty good.
Still today the best protein shake I've ever tasted, but I'm not about to sit there and choose it as a drink of choice. None of it tastes that good. It's powdered food. So I want to know what brand you're taking.
I'll tell you which ones I'm having. It's delicious. It's really good.
What is it? Can you remember it, or do you have to?
I think
we'll put it in the
show. Just go get his affiliate code first. Let me get his affiliate code.
It's an Australian brand, Body Balance. It's BSA or something. I'll send. I'll find a pic. It's tasty. It's really tasty.
Do you take it with water or milk? Okay,
Water.
I was going to say, because milk water makes it taste more palatable. I don't really drink. I take mine with water.
Milk. Yeah. There we go. Hopefully that was helpful for a few people.
I'm not honest. I didn't know you could get a good tasting protein shake. I mean, it's all just
honestly, it's delicious. It's like a dessert, which is why I'll be like, oh, that's yum. So nice that
you've got something broken in your brain, like a dessert, like a dessert
It's
is
like
a
chocolate brownie with ice cream.
cheesecake. There is no
Trust me,
protein
it's
that
super
exists out
tasty.
there that's like a cheesecake.
My son will say, "Come on, oh, please let me have some. Please let me have some," and I'll let him try it, and he will like guzzle it. He's like, "That is so delicious." It's he will smash a protein shake. He's like, "Oh, that's yum. Can I have another one?" I'm like, "No, you don't need to have 300 grams of protein, little Hulk."
All right, cool. On that note, let's wrap then.
Good stuff. I learned stuff, and that was good.
Yeah.
That was useful.
All right. Have a good rest of your day, and as usual, have a good night's sleep.
Thanks,
Now I'm
chaps.
going to ignore everything and that. I'm going to go get some protein shakes. See you later.
I'm about to go have a cheap porridge, actually. My
Oh,
dog is
hi,
actually... this is awesome. This has lasted this long. My dog has just been lying by my feet the whole time. And it's
I
literally...
thought
as we're about to
I heard
wrap
a little
now, he's
something
heard the
earlier.
doorbell go, so he's starting to whine.
Well, good effort. Do you already have any porridge now? Oh, you fasted this morning, were you?
Bye.
bye.